Imagine ordering your morning coffee. You know, something you do without a second thought every single day, but the word, it just won't come out. You're stuck on CCCC for cappuccino, and you can feel those invisible foot taps and eye rolls behind you, or trying to mutter the thanks and having catch in your throat like a fishbone. That was Liam Dorsey's daily reality, and in his world, well, that silent 10 seconds felt like an hour.
Mm-hmm. It's a really vivid picture.
And this isn't just a bad day, right, or a slip of the tongue. This is something called neuroverbal residual variant, a mutation from the tail end of the COVID family tree.
Yeah, they nicknamed it the strain.
Exactly, the strain. Our sources tell us it's non-fatal, non-invasive, but it does something pretty profound to the tongue and the brain.
Yeah.
And it changed everything.
It really did.
So our mission in this deep dive is to unpack the huge societal, personal, and even philosophical shifts that happened when the world suddenly found it couldn't, just say it.
We've gathered some incredible sources, really personal accounts, public reactions, even the rise of totally new ways of thinking about communication. So, to kick us off, from your research, what was the most surprising initial public reaction you saw as the strain started to spread?
That's a great question, because what's really striking, I think, is how fast this went from just a few isolated cases to like everyone knew someone who'd caught it. It just exploded. Initially, you had the CDC trying to calm people down, the usual messages like, it's not dangerous, it's not permanent, and it's manageable.
Standard procedure, yeah.
Right. But that was maybe week 2. By week 5, the Surgeon General himself was stammering live on national TV. And that really shifted things. This wasn't just some minor medical issue anymore. It became this undeniable part of everyday life affecting millions. It forced a massive, rapid shift in how people saw it. And for someone like Liam, who, he'd been a lifelong stutterer, the world's patience just completely evaporated.
Yeah.
His experience really laid bare this harsh truth. Society never really made room for disfluency. It sort of tolerated it, but often relied on the person themselves to, fake fluency.
Yeah.
Long pauses, swapping tricky words, using humor.
Right, the coping mechanisms.
Exactly. Before the strain, people maybe just thought he was thoughtful or choosing his words carefully. But now, the strain just ripped that illusion away. There was no hiding it.
And the patience just wasn't there.
Gone. And the public messaging for people affected, it shifted drastically too. Instead of the old, maybe patronizing, just slow down or you're so brave, people now heard things like, did you just catch it?
Yeah, huh?
Or even just, ugh, this thing's so annoying.
So dismissive.
Totally. And Liam's daily frustrations were just brutal. Being stuck with a cold brew he hated because he couldn't get cappuccino. Out of kind of daily torture, you can imagine. And it highlighted this painful irony, like the agonizing difficulty of even starting a Zoom interview. Hi, I'm LL Liam. I'm a copy writer with over, and his words just froze.
And that individual experience, like Liam's, it quickly cascaded into the broader public sphere, especially online. It showed how incredibly fast the internet reacts to what it sees as imperfections.
Oh, yeah. Swift and often cruel.
Cruel is the word. Take Jean Carter, for example. Our sources paint this picture of a former fast talker, debate team champ, talk radio host. Her voice was her identity, her tool, until it betrayed her. On live television, her mind was sharp as ever, but her mouth just jammed. The consequence?
Let me guess. Memes.
Hashtags. And yeah, a supercut titled Jean Carter's Buffering Brain. It was brutal. And her mother's well-meaning advice, it's just nerves, try ginger tea. It just kind of underscored this broader societal reluctance, this unwillingness to really acknowledge the permanence of the strain. Like our source puts it, no one wanted to talk about the fact that maybe this was her voice now, maybe this was just her.
Wow.
So it really begs the question, what happens when our basic means of communication, something we totally take for granted, suddenly becomes this public spectacle, this source of judgment?
Yeah, and that judgment didn't just stay online, did it? It fundamentally reshaped actual public spaces, the job market. As we looked into the societal shifts, what our sources uncovered was, frankly, startling. Supermarkets started installing express fluency lanes.
Express fluency lanes,
Hey,
seriously.
They're those who, quote, chose not to stutter, a phrase that, Liam said, made him want to walk into traffic. Job listings explicitly started, including verbal clarity required, again, something that had faded a bit, and call centers, rerouted straight to AI. Because the human voice, especially a strained one, just wasn't efficient enough anymore.
Wow, efficiency over everything.
Pretty much. Then came the slogan, the really chilling one. Fluency is a choice. Apparently, it started as this cringy social media ad from a tech startup, Voxure, They were promising voice-smoothing AI filters.
Ah, the tech solution.
Right, to optimize your clarity in real time, basically like auto-tune for stuttering
Wow.
or deep-faking your own fluency. But the slogan's evolution was rapid and pretty disturbing. It became the logo for a government campaign.
The government picked it up.
Yeah, a stylized mouth with lips sealed by digital bars and the tagline, "Control your voice, control your life." Jean Carter, the former anchor, she found the font itself fascist.
Ah.
So when this technology, this Voxer thing, emerged, were there immediate concerns about its broader implications, beyond just the, creepy slogan?
Oh, absolutely. Looking at the wider implications, this whole phenomenon just reveals how incredibly impatient the world became with any kind of imperfection. Even, as one source put it, straight up allergic. Liam experienced this directly, sifting through just a mess of rejection emails, getting ghosted the second he even lightly mentioned having the strain.
So he had to disclose it.
Well, he felt he did, or it would come out eventually. He even considered lying, pretending he had allergies or something. But then what? Just perform fluency forever? That's the really chilling question the sources get into.
A constant performance. Exhausting.
Exactly. But in stark contrast, we meet Samuel Price. He's this retired speech therapist who found this completely new purpose. He started leading a support group in a dusty church basement, and his counter message, delivered slowly, deliberately, it became this beacon for people. He'd say, you aren't broken. You're just harder to sell.
Harder to sell. Wow, that cuts right to it.
It really does. It just highlights the raw economic and social value we place on smooth communication, on efficiency. And Samuel's group wasn't small. It doubled in size, like really fast, full of people from all walks of life, lawyers, teachers, baristas. It showed how widespread the need was and how isolated people felt.
That pressure to conform, though, must have been immense. Liam's friend Chris described as a kind of smooth-talking sales type.
Ah, there's always one.
Right. He suggested these services that could patch it in smoother, record what you want to say, let an AI clean it up, like the Voxer stuff, basically. But Liam's resistance was so clear that's not...
The authenticity question.
Exactly. And Chris's response just cuts so deep. But do they know that? I mean, do they care? And that really reveals this core tension, right, between identity and just functionality. It defines so much of the strain's impact.
That's a really key conflict.
Meanwhile, Jean Carter, the journalist, she started developing her own theory. She started asking, what if the strain wasn't just biological? What if it was cultural?
Interesting, like societal pressure manifesting physically.
Sort of.
Yeah.
She talked to Dr. Lillian Morrow, a neurolinguistics specialist, who hinted at this, saying, trauma ripples. So does pressure. So does mimicry. So Jean started this personal journey, trying to embrace her own honest voice. She started recording her articles with the stumbles, the blocks, everything, and found it sounded, well, honest. Maybe that was enough.
And this whole period, it saw the emergence of these radically different viewpoints on how to even respond to this strain. It wasn't monolithic at all. Samuel Price, who was initially just this, old retired guy in a basement, he suddenly gets called to a roundtable of prominent voices. That signals a real shift in who society considered an expert.
The definition of expertise changed.
It did. And then you have Naomi Lee and The Silence. This group had a completely different take. They believed the strain was a correction, not a disease.
A correction.
Yeah, and that fluency is oppression. Naomi's speech style itself was described as powerful, rhythmic, slicing her sentences into the room. She declared, your voice is not a flaw, it's a fingerprint. Their core message was profound. We are not broken, we are reframed. We are what happens when the world is forced to listen. And maybe most powerfully, we don't need to be fixed, we need to be felt.
Wow. You need to feel that's quite a statement.
It really is. Now, contrast that completely with Voxer's big product launch.
Yeah.
The Echo Frame AI speech overlay system, they did this demo, transformed a volunteer with a really severe block into this super confident sounding avatar version of himself. The words came out totally flawless.
Thanks.
Flawless.
Technological fix perfected.
Exactly. But beneath the simulation, the source mentions the original audio kept beneath the simulation was heartbreaking. Just raw struggle. And Dr. Vivian Song, another expert quoted, had this really poignant comment about it. She said, it's efficient, but don't confuse efficiency with empathy.
Oof, yeah, that hits hard.
It really does. And it just invites you to consider, what is the true cost of that kind of technological perfection when it comes to something as fundamental as human expression and identity?
Jean Carter, reflecting on all this, walking along the Schuylkill River in one account, she mused that There's a new tension forming, not between the sick and the healthy, but between the fluent and the real.
Fluent versus real. That's fascinating.
Yeah. She said the strain didn't just change speech, it changed power. And her own voice, which used to be sharp, untouchable TV Jean, now sounded, in her words, human.
Mhm.
And the question she grappled with, which our sources seem to leave hanging there, was that progress?
It's such a deep question. And stepping back, this whole deep dive, it really shows us that the strain isn't ultimately just about how we speak. It's about who gets to speak, who gets listened to, and who gets to define what's acceptable communication in the first place. It's really about how society reacts to difference. Does it try to erase it, or does it try to accommodate it?
Make space for it.
Right. And Naomi Lee's point that the silence were against the cure, the Voxer not because it doesn't work, because of what it costs. And the cost she meant was the implicit message that disfluency itself, that difference, is a defect that needs fixing. That really gets to the absolute heart of the matter, I think.
Yeah. So we've seen how quickly a seemingly, maybe initially minor physical change can just ripple through society. It altered personal identity, professional opportunities, even the very definition of what it means to be heard. From Liam's daily battle with a coffee order, to Jean's search for truth in her own changed voice, and Samuel Price's quiet revolution in that church basement, this whole story really challenges our deepest assumptions about communication and connection.
It really does, and maybe it invites you, the listener, to consider this. In a world that seems increasingly driven by efficiency, by the pursuit of perfection, what value do we truly place on authenticity, and what might we inadvertently lose collectively and individually if we constantly try to smooth over the very things that make us uniquely us?